This is a flower bed of spring flowers in the corner of a Victorian walled garden. There's a wrought iron structure as a central feature, which you're going to put the central feature in your picture, which is on a 7x10 Bockingford sheet. It's watercolour over a detailed pencil drawing. First off, you start drawing your scene in there. Delicately draw it, very, very delicate. Mindful of perspective of the shape of the frame, which is easily done because you've got a photograph of it there and you can take it from the photograph. Use photographs like that. The camera works it out for you, helps you build your confidence. And slowly building your flowers and the structure of the painting. The flowers are tulips, anemones and forget-me-nots. In the background you've got phormiums and bamboo, the wall and some distant trees, evergreens. I think there's laurels back there as well. Slowly and delicately bring your drawing up. Look at those old Victorian artists going back to the turn of the last century. Exquisite little watercolours. Fantastic drawing. They used to teach draftsmanship in those days. That seems to have gone by the board. The art colleges don't seem to care if you can draw or not. To me, the essence of good art is draftsmanship. Being able to put your idea down onto a piece of paper so it looks like what you want it to look like. It's not a squiggle and a scroll. Build up your drawing very delicately in pencil. Work from the top. Try to avoid making a mess. If you have to, use a protecting sheet under your hand. You're not going to be rubbing this one out. This is your drawing as you're going to lay the colours over. Draw in the flowers so you know where they are. Take your drawing right to the edge so that when the picture's framed, it sits well in its mount. Draw in the flowers around your wrought iron work there. As you're doing it, analyse it. Analyse how your colours are going to go down. Pretty little garden. Not my usual sort of subject, but it makes a nice little study. There's the wall in the background, faintly drawn in. A bit of wrought iron work. Judging by the hump, it was probably once a well. The pulley and bucket would have been in the middle of that frame going down. So there you have your nice, accurate drawing ready to apply the colour. Okay, once again, always cobalt blue. A bit of ultramarine to modify it slightly and give it that nice sky blue, warm, beautiful day. I don't like painting grey weather. Grey is the colour of depression, so I tend to avoid anything to do with grey. A bit like concrete. No wonder cities are depressing places. Or they can be. Start by painting your blue sky carefully round the top of the picture. There you go. Once the sky is painted in, go down and start putting in the blue where the anemones and forget-me-nots are. I think there's anemones around the top end, around wellhead there, and forget-me-nots along the bottom. Work a wash of that blue in there. Clean your palette, alizarin crimson. Take a pop at the test sheet to make sure it's okay. You're happy with it? A bit stronger. You see, in relation to the picture, you can see exactly what you're doing. And then start painting in your flowers. The tulips. Quite a spectacular garden it was. There it goes. Nice and even layer of alizarin crimson. Right, cadmium red, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, a bit more burnt sienna, a touch of burnt umber to bring the colour down a bit. There we go, and that's your base colour for your brickwork. Experiment with different colours because bricks vary all the time, so from delicate terracotta through to pink. Fantastic range of brick colours in this country. Green now, sap green and yellow ochre. Touch of burnt sienna. And block in your bamboo. Nice delicate greeny yellow bamboo. Mixing up a second lot of colour there. Pale cadmium. Sap green. Pale cadmium. Touch of burnt sienna. That's better. And then put that in as well. So you've got the two, combination of the two run into each other. Bring it all the way around to the bottom. You're basically blocking in the colours over the entire picture. Build up your layers. You see how thin and delicate those washes are. There's no chance of it going muddy on you. Fresh colour. Viridian. Bit more water. So you bring in clean water all the time. Don't pollute your palette. Viridian and burnt sienna. Quick test on the test sheet. Bit more burnt sienna. The brown on the green tones it down. If you use it straight off the pan, you end up with a green that looks like something out of a child's fantasy book. Too bright. The brown just tones it down, makes it more natural. You'll find the more you do, the more you get used to doing it. Amazing, that little pot of colours, you can mix anything you like. I can produce the same amount of work with that as I would with my other watercolour box, which has got 30 colours and cost me hundreds of pounds. To be totally honest with you, it's quite a revelation to me what I've achieved using just a small sketching box of watercolours, 12, in fact it's 11 pans. My art tutors make me do paintings with limited palette, say 3 colours, to mix your different colours from it. You get a terrific uniformity when you do that, but all sorts of things to do to experiment. Here you are putting green in between the flowers for the vegetation, that's the leaves and foliage. Darker green now. Add ultramarine to it. Start working in that tree at the back there. Go blocking in more green in the background. Slowly fill in the whole picture till it's blocked in. Once your colours are all in on the picture, you can then build it because your colours relate to each other. If you've got great areas of white, it's very difficult to decide the tone and the hue of your colour you're going to use in relation to others. This way around, you get the whole thing blocked in. Thin, delicate wash. You can see it's just literally stained the paper. Don't over wet it either. Soaking the paper in gallons of water tends to make the surface of the paper open up and end up looking like a piece of blotting paper. Delicate greens then, bringing it down towards that phormium with a lighter green. But here we are, virtually well and truly covered all over. Viridian, yellow ochre. This is for the final with the green. Once you're happy with it, a bit more yellow. And a test sheet. Didn't think I was going to do that then, did you? Here we go. That last bit, and there it is, filled in. Blocked in. Right, you can mix a couple of brick reds using cadmium red, burnt sienna, burnt umber, touch of ultramarine. Clean the brush. Cadmium red in that one, alizarin crimson. With your small brush, regularly little strokes, give an impression of brickwork in the wall over there. Build up layers of bricks, and you've got two different colours to do it in, so it'll give it a rustic brick finish. Just build up layers on that wall. You're now basically at the stage where you're going to start building up your layers. You've built up your brick wall, go back on it and intensify it and build up the detail to give it a textured effect. Mix up your green and do the same with the bamboo and start bringing in little streaks of bamboo leaves. Work delicately. This is a delicate little picture. Bring that darker green down in between the flowers. You want the flowers to stand up in time and stand out. So the darker colour underneath should give you a more vibrancy in the flower colours. Contrast them against the dark background. There you go, build up the green into the vegetation. If you overdo it, piece of toilet paper handy and just blot it and chuck it away in the bowl up there. Putting it into a bowl means you don't throw it on the floor, don't end up smudging it onto your painting. All the way over, working in the detail. Including down the bottom. Missed a bit there, go back and start filling it in. People often say to me, but you've got talent. And I believe it's you are born with a desire to do it rather than the talent. And anyone can do it. It's a matter of wanting to do it and persevering and learning your craft. And that's the most important thing, is practice and learn your craft. Anyone can do what I'm doing with the right application of attitude. Once you've done that layer, you're going to take another mix of dark green. Once again, you have viridian, burnt umber and ultramarine. Build up a nice dark bluey green and start working in the detail of the distant trees. Work around your picture so everything develops in relation to its neighbour. So the whole picture progresses as one. The temptation is to go thick to try and get an effect and increase the density of your paint, and all you'll do is end up with mud and blotting paper. So keep it delicate, just keep it delicate all the time. Trust me, it works. There we go, detail in there. Once again, there's no purple shadow in that yet. You'll work that in later. That's the magical touch. Get your colours built up and get the impression of leaves and layers of leaves. So each of the washes shows through from the one before. So give it the three-dimensional quality along the bottom there. Quite dark at the bottom to seat your picture down. It's a bit too light. The top's darker than the bottom, so you really want that bottom quite nice and dark, so the blue flowers come up like little jewels, and the picture sits. Once you've got the layer, once again go back over it with dark. This green's got a bit more brown and a bit more burnt umber. Start building up that detail. Can you see it's starting to take shape now? But you see the top now has gone back. The middle ground has become dominant. So you're bringing up the bottom to relate to the middle ground. Can you see how that changes it suddenly? And now the flowers are looking distinctly insipid on there. So once that's done, you're going to have to start looking at bringing your flowers up. Bit more greeny brown. Check on your test sheet. Use it. If it's too brown, add some Viridian. Adjust. If it's going too thick, too intense, too over mixed, water it down. You don't really want to have about more than 3 colours when you're mixing colour. Don't forget when you mix colour, the tendency is that the colours will eventually go to black. So you mix all your colours together on a palette in a great big stew, you'll end up with black. So as to keep it relatively low on the mixing of colours, in the sense that you don't put too many colours into one mix. I usually work to about 3, sometimes 4, but never more than that if I can help it. Here we go. You've mixed up your alizarin crimson and with the cadmium red, and you're now working in the flowers. Leave little bits of the original wash showing through, which gives it a sparkle. There we go. Can you see how suddenly the middle ground and the foreground and the flowers are all related to one another? They've got the same intensity that gives you the uniformity. One part doesn't seem to dominate the other anymore. Now, blue, ultramarine. You can see by using a separate mixing brush, it's a terrific amount of wear on the brush. An old brush like that, it doesn't wear your brush tips out. More blue on the forget-me-nots. That brings it now up with the other flowers. A bit like putting weights on a set of scales. You keep on adding a little bit to each side until the scales balance perfectly. Work the blue in there. Not much shadow in the picture yet. Once again, you're going to rectify that shortly. There's your blue, and here we go with the purple. Alizarin crimson, ultramarine. And your test sheet to make sure that well mixed. And here you go into the sky with purple. Quite a nice delicate wash. Smaller brush. Shadows cast on the wall there. literally work the whole picture over with your purple shadows. That branch there now, by putting the shadow on there, you bring that branch to overhang the wall over the top there. Put some shadow into the dapple shadow onto the wall. That distant tree there is a bit bland, so you bring in your purple branches silhouetted against the sky. Takes time. And work with the tip of the brush. Keep it delicate. Don't allow it to blot. And work the light as the brush discharges the paint. It gets fainter, so you have the effect of closer and more distant, because the purples are different tones and different intensities. So when it's dry, it'll look like some of your branches are further back than others. Here we go. Little shadows into the bamboo. Come all the way down the picture, working all over it. When it's dry, put a second wash over some of the patches to give the feeling of intense shade. Then down into the flowers themselves. Onto the actual red of the flowers and onto the foliage. Start giving you a finished feel to the picture with the shadows in. Transforms it. It takes a pretty flat picture and turns it into a picture that jumps out at you. I love doing this. The transformation is quite dramatic. All over with your purple. Once you've done that, look at the picture and decide what it needs. I feel it could do with a bit more warmth to it, so mixed up a bit of yellow with a touch of sienna just to warm it and tone it down, and put a bit of a yellow wash on it. Then you can work around other colours. Browns for twigs and branches, more reds to bring up the flowers. A bit more intense, try and give it more oomph to the flowers. Very delicately put in. Once again, alizarin crimson, cadmium reds. Good idea is to actually mix yourself up a series of colours with different ones, write them down on a piece of paper, put the colours there when they dry so you know what combinations suit you. Back with some blue again, and we're going to bring up the blues yet again. You see, it's just been literally a progression of building up your colours until you have it. Now we're going to mix up the black because we're going to do the wrought iron work. So it's alizarin crimson, ultramarine and burnt umber. Get a really nice intense black. Once again, don't overmix it. It's still going on as a wash. It's easier to apply a couple of coats than one really thick coat and end up with a messy splurge. There we go, do the globe on top there. Delicate brush. And round you go, building up the layers all the way down into the flowers, all the twiddly bits. Carefully paint it in. If you have to do a second layer. There's an extra bit of green I'm doing here. Viridian ultramarine to get a nice dark green. Bit of burnt umber to tone it down. I'm just putting a bit of extra detail to that background tree. So there you have it done. Next, this one's worth doing the gouache because it needs to really bring some more sparkle in. Mix up your gouache carefully. And with the gouache, highlight the raw time work. It's got gloss paint on it, so it's catching the light, so it's going to have white surfaces where the light's catching. Really makes the picture sparkle. Very slowly. Make sure the paint is sufficiently fine to lay on. Now look at this. A lot of tiny, tiny, tiny white dots into those trees. If you actually look at a tree in the sun, you tend to think, oh, it's a tree, it's green. But if you look, the leaves go purple at the back to greens, and the ones catching the light are reflecting the light. They actually appear white. So there's a lot of white in nature, which is a reflection of the sunlight. I'm signing it there.